Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Steel City Insider VIP Special, 50% off annual, plus $1 first month. After drafting his next pupil in the 6th round last April, Steelers defensive line coach Carl Dunbar called Logan Lee strong and big and very, very mature. The proof is in the numbers. Lee was a 6'5" 3/8", 281-pounder who put up 225 pounds 25 times at the 2024 NFL Combine. The 24-year-old was also the only married man on his Iowa team last year, having married the girl he'd been dating since his sophomore year in high school. And that first date had occurred 3 years after Logan whiffed badly upon meeting Tori in 7th grade at a state track meet. According to the Daily Iowan, Lee took an interest in his future wife right away, and, after an agonizing walk in silence, finally asked whether she had seen a girl eat it yesterday in the hurdles. Tori reacted angrily. "That was me," she said before storming off. Logan didn't see her again for 2 years. But they will celebrate their second wedding anniversary on July 3rd. "First impressions don't always matter," Lee said with a laugh from the Steelers' locker room. He can only hope the same holds true with his coach, Mike Tomlin. The first time Lee met him, he almost ran Tomlin over. "His son was at a Nike opening camp and I was there," Lee told reporters on draft day about his high school experience. "I was running down the field and I accidentally ran into him. Oops, sorry. Sorry, sir. Oh, my gosh, you're Coach Tomlin. And then I was just freaking out." Tomlin didn't recall that initial meeting, but Lee said later the two have joked about it. To Lee, it was no joke, because Tomlin is the coach of the team for whom Lee cheered loudest as a child growing up in Orion, Illinois, a town of less than 2,000 on the northwest border of Illinois. "My best friend Austin Mack and his dad Rich were huge Steelers fans, so I started looking into the Steelers a little bit," Lee told WQAD News' Matt Randazzo. "I did deep dives into all of the historical NFL teams and I really loved the Steel Curtain." Lee loved those 1970s Steelers, in particular, because their highlight film would be like ejections every single play, so I'm like, that's cool. "I grew up watching all of that and by the time I was 8 and 11 they were in the Super Bowls against Seattle and Arizona." Less than 10 years later, Lee was wearing the black and gold of the Iowa Hawkeyes. Lee said the Steelers and Hawkeyes colors were only coincidental in his college choice. "There are a lot of other parallels that are consistent," Lee told Quad Cities TV station. "One of those is coaching stability. Coach Kirk Ferentz, Coach Hayden Fry have been there since the 80s. Coach Tomlin, Coach Cowher and Coach Knoll were there since the late 60s. Coaching staff stability is very similar. And then it's just tough, hard-nosed guys who do things the right way. They both recruit guys who will fit their culture as much as they will fit the system." While Lee is a history buff who knows all about Joe Green and company, he also knows about the similarly sized championship Steelers Aaron Smith and Brett Kiesel, who played defensive end in the team's base 3-4 defense. "I've heard the Aaron Smith talk more," Lee said. "But I remember both of them growing up." Lee was told he'd line up over either the outside 5 technique or inside 4 shoulders of opposing offensive tackles, and then I'll bump inside in the nickel defenses. What the Steelers need to do to win more than 10 games in 2024. After having 4 straight 10-plus win seasons in the mid-2010s, the Steelers now find themselves with just one in the past 5 years. Now, coming off of their most active off-season in a long time, here are some things the Steelers can do in 2024 to secure over 10 wins and yet another winning season for Mike Tomlin. Whether it be Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, or both, the new Steelers quarterback room must be better than last year. While Mason Rudolph ended 2023 with consistent performances that led to a playoff appearance, it was not enough. The trio of Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky and Rudolph had their moments and did bring the Steelers 9 wins. However, the team had one of the lowest scoring offenses in the league despite an excellent run game. It is easy where to point the blame. With new offensive coordinator Arthur Smith, it is doubtful that the Steelers won't manage to score more often than they did in 2023. Pittsburgh sports teams are notorious for playing up or down to their opponents. With how difficult the Steelers' schedule is at the back end of 2024, they must be able to stack wins against some of the worst teams on the schedule. With that being said, the Steelers were very good against an impressive AFC North last season, going 5-1. The Steelers also did drop 4 games to non-playoff opponents. This includes the mid-season collapse against the Arizona Cardinals and New England Patriots, who had a combined 8 wins in 2023. Once again, consistency is key, as every game is a must-win in a short season, and no matter how good or bad the opponent, the Steelers must be prepared. As previously stated, the Steelers have a grueling schedule to end the season and simply in general. Now, more than ever, the Steelers must win their home games and take advantage of those matchups. Batco on Brandon Aiyuk's mentality for Steelers: I'd come in as top dog over George Pickens. Brandon Aiyuk may have mentioned the Pittsburgh Steelers by name, but I wouldn't rush out for that black and gold jersey. The San Francisco wide receiver still handicapped his future team in favor of the 49ers. He even named the Washington Commanders ahead of the Steelers. But the case for Pittsburgh remains alive, perhaps for both sides, certainly for Aiyuk, unless it's just a bargaining chip. Anywhere he goes, Aiyuk knows he is going there to be the top target if he leaves. He probably holds that role in San Francisco, but he has to share a lot there. They are already paying Deebo Samuel, and they just drafted another wide receiver in the first round. With the Steelers, all they have is George Pickens, and Brian Batco doesn't think he sees that as a threat. Aiyuk is probably thinking, I'm a lot more accomplished, I've had a lot more success in the league so far than this guy. I'd come in as top dog right away, probably get paid, and have a nice little tenure here, he said on 93.7 The Fan yesterday. Over the past 2 seasons, Brandon Aiyuk has caught 153 passes on 219 targets. He has recorded 2,357 receiving yards with 15 touchdowns. In comparison, George Pickens has caught 115 passes on 190 yards. He has recorded 1,941 receiving yards with 9 touchdowns. You can compare and contrast their offenses and quarterback situations, but neither Pickens nor Aiyuk have been ideally set up to succeed. You can argue that Brock Purdy is the best quarterback of the lot, but the 49ers don't throw the ball. They literally finished 32nd in the NFL in pass attempts, yet 4th in yards and 2nd in touchdowns. They rely on high-efficiency play, averaging 13.6 yards per reception. The Steelers averaged 10.6 yards per reception, for comparison. The Steelers obviously have a high opinion of George Pickens, empowering them to trade Deontay Johnson. But they probably do think that Brandon Aiyuk is better, or at least more reliable from play to play. Both are very talented, but Aiyuk clearly has the more impressive resume, in twice the time, granted. That's the issue with making this trade for the Steelers, because it's essentially committing to Aiyuk over Pickens. Unless the Steelers are willing to pay huge sums to 2 wide receivers, Pickens is likely going to leave after 2025. And what if he develops into a top wide receiver by then? Pickens clearly suffered from the quality of quarterback play the last 2 seasons, primarily with Kenny Pickett. The Steelers turned over the entire quarterback room, led now by Russell Wilson. But how do we evaluate the impact of Brock Purdy on Aiyuk's numbers? How do we quantify the Kyle Shanahan system versus the Matt Canada calamity? And you fan? What do you think of the situation of Brandon Aiyuk? Leave your opinion in the comments.